Order. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I need a pledge of allegiance. Mr. Chairman.
You can please stand, put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do roll call. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Call to order and pledge of allegiance. Roll call.
Sorry, everyone. Full disclaimer, I'm never late. Okay, first time. Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here.
Commissioner Figueroa,
Here,
Commissioner Leal, absent. Alternate Commissioner Gutierrez. Here. Vice Chair Navarrete, absent. Chair Virgen.
Here. Thank you.
And being that there's 3 commissioners and alternates, I guess alternate Commissioner Gutierrez, you could sit up with the rest of the planning commissioners if you want to do that, but
Yes.
you have a microphone there as well,
Please.
so.
I'm comfortable here.
Okay.
for the record, since there is 2 missing, he gets to participate in both. in this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Okay, so we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. At this time, the commission may announce any items being pulled from the agenda or continue to another date or request the moving of an item on the agenda. Do we have any requests from commissioners at this time? Any items being pulled? No? Anything from staff?
None from staff.
Okay. Okay, so can we get a motion to approve the agenda as is?
A motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Can we get a second?
I'll second Commissioner Figueroa's
Wonderful.
motion.
And can we get roll call, please?
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Figueroa,
Aye.
Vice Chair, I'm sorry, yeah, Vice Chair Navarrete is absent. Alternate Commissioner Gutierrez
Yes.
and Commissioner Leal, absent, and Chair Virgen.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes.
Okay, so we're moving on to approval of the minutes. This is for the Planning Commission meeting minutes for October 5th, 2022. If everyone had an opportunity to look at those, do we have any corrections at this time for staff? No? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes for October 5th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for October 5th.
Thank you. And can we get a second?
2022.
I'll second Commissioner Gonzalez's motion.
Thank you. And can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Figueroa,
Aye.
Commissioner Leal is absent. Vice Chair, I'm sorry, alternate Commissioner Gutierrez.
I wasn't present, haven't seen the minutes, so I abstain.
Okay. And then Vice Chair Navarrete is absent. Chair Virgen
Aye.
passes.
Thank you. Moving on to written communications. Do we have anything?
There are none.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So moving on to public comments. For non-agenda items, the public may address the commission on any item of interest to the public that is not on the agenda, but is within the subject matter jurisdiction thereof. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. At this time, do we have any public comments for non-agenda items?
Attendees, please raise your hand if you'd like to comment. There are none.
Thank you. And do we have anything that was submitted to the
The staff?
Mhm.
No.
Okay.
Nothing submitted, written comments.
Okay, thank you. We are going to move on to reports and requests. Do we have any reports from staff?
No reports from staff.
Okay, and any requests from the commission at this time? No? Okay, so we're gonna move on to our non-hearing items. This is our first item, and it's item number 2, request for a third 12-month time extension for architectural review number 19-02. Whenever you're ready, staff.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Plan Commission. I have a brief presentation for this item. Okay, so this item is a time extension request for 12 months for the project known as the Guardado Commercial Project. And this is the last time extension. Applicants are eligible for up to 3 one-year time extensions. And so they received 2 already. So this would be the last one. This is a project consisting of 2 commercial buildings, 22,300 square feet, 1.9 acres located at the southeast corner of Valley Road and Cesar Chavez Street. This is the location. It's a commercial zone property. Just some background, the Plan Commission approved this in 2019. And then in October 12th of 2021, the applicant submitted the first time extension request, which was granted. And they, at that time, we allowed for retroactive time extensions, and that allowed them to get 2 one-year time extensions, and that expired August 7th. As long as they submit the request before the time extension expires, then they're still eligible until the Plan Commission makes a decision. This is the location again, just the aerial, the site plan, and the elevation. So these were all initially approved by a Plan Commission. The landscape plan. And then these were just renderings for Harrison Street corridor from an initial planning document back in the early 2000s. And a rendering of that building. In the second building. So the reason the applicant's requesting the time extension is because they have been in plan check and they're actually almost done. So they actually submitted their building plans and their engineering plans. And so in order for us to approve it, we also need to make sure that they have their time extension request approved. But that's it. Staff doesn't recommend any changes to the conditions of approval, but we feel that this time extension is warranted.
Thank you, Gabe. Does the commission have any questions or comments on this item?
So when would they expect to break ground if it goes all according to plan?
Oh, I don't know. They haven't mentioned when they plan to break ground, but I know they're really itching to get their permits approved.
Hmm.
So I assume that's pretty soon.
Make a motion, staff recommendation to grant the extension, the third extension. 12-month extension for architectural review.
Okay, do we have a second or a different motion?
I second.
Thank you. And can we get roll call, please?
There's no one who wants to talk about it.
Okay.
No, I mean in the public. And it's not a non-hearing
Well,
item, but
Do we have anybody in the audience? Or?
Yeah, it's not a public hearing item, but you could, if you want to allow someone to.
Yeah,
speak
if
to
they
the
want
item,
to,
Okay,
feel free
if
to
they want to
do so.
address it,
It's up to the Plan Commission.
commission.
okay.
No.
Do we have any comments from the public at this time for item number 2? It's not a public hearing item, that's why I did not open it up to the public, but we are allowing for public comments. Does anyone have any questions or comment on this item? Okay. Okay, thank you. And we had a motion from Commissioner Gonzalez and a second from Commissioner Gutierrez. Can we get roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Figueroa,
Aye.
Commissioner Leal is absent, alternate Commissioner Gutierrez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Navarrete, absent, and Chair Virgen.
Aye,
Motion passes.
thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to our public hearing calendar. This is for item number 3. And it's for the Tripoli mixed use project, and there are proposed revisions on here. Whenever you're ready, Gabe.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chair, members of the Plan Commission. I do have a presentation on this. Gabriel, that is your Development Services Director. Okay, so the Plan Commission has previously seen this project earlier this year. The reason why this project is back to Plan Commission, there are some design revisions, some site revisions that are proposed by the applicant. Originally, there was a change of zone that was approved for the site that allowed for the mixed-use development at the location, and they applied for a planned unit development standards. So it allows you to develop your own standards if you apply for it, right, and get the conditional use permit approved. So now they're requesting revision to their conditional use permit 351 and their architectural review 22-04 for the mixed use project. It's 108 apartment units. Originally it was 2 retail spaces. They've actually increased that now on 2.8 acres. The applicant is Chelsea Investment Corporation. So the Planning Commission reviewed this item back in April of 2022 and did approve these entitlements for the project. And then the City Council approved it on May 11th of this year. This is the site location, northeast corner of Cesar Chavez and Baghdad Avenue. That's in the Pueblo Viejo district. And so this is just a rendering that we had when the Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan was developed, and this is the site that this would be located at. So, some of the development that's proposed kind of follows that envisioned pattern on Cesar Chavez and Baghdad. This was a site plan that was approved. So you could see there were 2 buildings that were approved. One was a 3-story building and the other was a 4-story building. And so both of them contained retail space on the ground floor. Both contained a community room, and there was an outdoor tot lot, on-site parking, and also some proposed off-site parking that was proposed as diagonal parking. This is building A that was approved, and so this is the configuration that was approved for the first floor. And so you can see the retail was oriented towards 6th Street to provide more retail opportunities on 6th Street, since that's a goal of the city to encourage more retail on that street. Building B, this is the first floor floor plan. So you can see the retail component is at the corner of Cesar Chavez and Baghdad, and then also included a community space on the ground floor as well. There would be ground floor units. These were the unit types that were proposed, and so the applicant actually proposes to change the size of the unit types, and I'll go into that in a bit, but they did propose 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit types. This is an affordable housing project. So out of the 108 units, 58 would be very low income units, and then 50 would be low income units. And this is a perspective view of the original approved drawings. And then the views from Cesar Chavez Street. This is that building B on Cesar Chavez, and then the view from Baghdad Avenue. This was the view of building, the other building on Tripoli, and then on 6th Street. So these are 2 of the elevations that were approved. Then we had a materials board of the type of materials that were proposed, and the landscape plan that was reviewed by the Plan Commission. So since that time, the applicant has expressed that there was a need to redesign the project. Part of the reasons that were mentioned were the requirement for elevators in both buildings, you might recall that. So the Plan Commission and City Council encouraged that the elevator be included in both buildings, and that's a condition of approval of the project. So the applicant does provide the elevators in both buildings, but because of that expense, they're proposing to some redesign of the project. But in addition to the elevator, just the original design for the project, they mentioned was cost prohibitive. And so they also need to work on a redesign because of that. And there may be other reasons, so the applicant's going to have a chance to be able to speak to that after my presentation. So these are the two colored elevations that we have. We don't have color elevations for the elevations we had for the original design project, but these are the elevations that were provided. So one is the elevation for 6th Street, and then the other is for the elevation facing Cesar Chavez Street. And these are probably going to be the most visible parts of the development. And you could see the changes. We'll go into the changes in a bit. But we did work with the applicant on these revisions. And so the applicant did first propose the elevation on 6th Street on top. And then, based on some of the comments we provided, and we provided a lot of extensive comments on this. In response to some of the comments, they provided the second revision. And so some of those comments included like the first floor commercial. Really what the architect and the applicant was trying to do was make the project look very similar to the Pueblo Viejo Villas project. And so they try to include a lot of elements from that development, and which were different from the original project, right? And so the retail component, you can see on the first revision, kind of reflects what the commercial looks like on the first floor of Pueblo Viejo Villas. And we thought there was room for improvement on the way that the commercial looks on the first floor, and that we thought there needed to be more expanded like windows, similar to the original approved plan. You could see in the second revision, they included finials on top of the two towers. So those are kind of like ornamental elements at the top of those two towers. And they made a few changes to the towers. You can see they brought up that feature to the right, slightly above the roof line. And let's see what else. And then they changed slightly the roof on the right hand side of this elevation. The applicant does propose 9-foot 1-inch ceilings. In the Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan, it talks about 15-foot ceilings. The applicant says that it's cost prohibitive for them to provide the 15-foot ceilings. And but the other thing that the revitalization plan encourages is that the first floor residential units be 3 feet above the first floor, above the ground level, and that's to encourage like more privacy. And so some of the units for Pueblo Viejo Villas are at an elevated level, so there are some stairs that go up to them. Not all of them are, but there are some. With this, the applicant did express that the other site did lend itself to doing that because of the grade of the entire site. On this site, they've expressed that it's very flat. And so to achieve that height for the first floor residential, they would have to bring in fill dirt, which would be an expense for them to be able to do that. So this is a picture of Pueblo Viejo Villas on the first floor commercial. So I thought there was opportunities to increase how this could work and ensure that we get good retail tenants and small businesses in located here. One of the things that we observed on a walk by these spaces is that that canopy is really easy to touch and actually just manipulate just by reaching up and grabbing it. And so the higher windows and that look actually, I think will help make the retail successful for this new project. This is a revision that was originally provided at the top for the elevation on Cesar Chavez Street. And so there was a color revision earlier, so we'll go back to that again, but this was the original black and white provided to us. And so again, you see the commercial that kind of resembles the Pueblo Viejo villas. You know, I encourage them to kind of go back to the wider windows and, you know, the more pronounced look of the retail spaces. In this one, it's changed, right? So the community buildings that they, community rooms that they propose in each of the buildings are merged in the other building, right? And sorry, it actually called them both building A, but it's actually building, both of these are building B. So there's more pronounced retail on the second revision, just from the comments that we provided them to provide more decorative harness trim. One of the comments that we did provide is that the tower element, if you could see where it's located, the more pronounced one, it doesn't go all the way to the edge of the building. So it kind of has, it ends before the edge, and it's more of the overall roof line kind of finishes out at that corner. On this elevation too, the first floor is at the ground level. These retail spaces would be at the 9-foot 1-inch level. One of the other things that we did encourage from the original design is that it include a tower that it once proposed at the north end of this building. This is a comparison of the first floor. So on the left is the original plan for the building along 6th Street. And then on the right is how it's changed. So they propose, instead of one large retail space, to break it up into 2 retail spaces. And then you could see the community room located more on the south side. That's a large area there. Originally, there were residential units there. This is building B. And so you could see the original floor plan had the community room and retail space. So they've merged that community room into the other building A and provided 2 retail spaces here along Cesar Chavez Street. And these are the unit plans. So the unit plans changed slightly in the floor plan. They're smaller than the original. And so I'm going to go into that comparison right now. So I'm going to go through this really slowly because I figure this is an important enough project to be able to do that. And so just want to make sure that you understand some of the differences. So here I have a table of what was originally approved versus the new proposal. So in that building A, that is near Cesar Chavez and Tripoli, that building once had 44 units and now it's 50 units. The overall project still has the same amount of units, 108 units, but they change between the buildings. You could see the unit sizes that were once 1 bedroom, 581 to 586 square feet have been reduced to 542 square feet. The 2 bedrooms were reduced from 789 square feet to 702 square feet. The 3 bedrooms were 1,061 square feet and are now 932 square feet. So that was the change made across the board for both buildings, but just the distribution of those units were changed between the 2 buildings. As far as the community room, the original building A had a 652 square foot community room, and building B had a 1,296 square foot community room for a total of 1,948 square feet of community space in the buildings. So building A in this proposal no longer has that community room. So that instead has been merged with building B. And I'm sorry, I should say 1,790 square feet of community space. As far as open space and commercial space, originally there was a top lot outdoor that was about 218 square feet, and it was located more by the on the north end of the project. This one is actually located more the new proposal by building A, And it's now 813 square feet. So it's a larger area, which we think is a good idea. As far as commercial space, as I mentioned, Building A had one commercial space that was 1,085 square feet, and Building B 1,413 square feet, for a total of 2,498 square feet. So in the new proposal, there are 2 commercial spaces in Building A and 2 commercial spaces in Building B, and the total retail has increased to 4,046 square feet. So I think that's a good contribution to the project in terms of increasing retail space, and that's a good thing for the city. Part of that was the commercial space has been reduced. On the other hand, the outdoor open space has been increased for children play area. As far as parking, there are some modifications to the parking. So originally the project proposed 159 total spaces that would be on-site and off-site. The new proposal would be 142 spaces. So the total on-site parking reduced by 3 spaces. So not a big change for the on-site parking. This slide is just a comparison between Building B on Cesar Chavez. And so on the top is the original design. And then on the bottom is the now proposed design of the project. And so, so you could, obviously see there's some differences, especially on the roof line in terms of some of the articulating features of the elevation. There were more towers or more pronounced in the elevation. One of the things we encouraged was to retain that tower that you see on the north end of that building, because it provides more of that variation on that part of the elevation. Some of the colors have changed with the project as well. Originally, the applicant was proposing some ground floor residential units, so that hasn't changed. They still propose that. As far as the retail component, you could see it still is consistent with the original design of the retail to be more pronounced and have larger windows. The large tower feature at the corner of Baghdad and Cesar Chavez, it's a little different, right? Because it's offset in this elevation. Staff encourages that tower to be relocated to the corner. Here's the Baghdad Avenue frontage elevation. And so this is still Building B. And we don't have a color elevation for the new revision, but you could see obviously the difference is the building is now a 3-story building instead of a 4-story building. It still has the tower feature at the corner, but then again, it's more set back from that corner. It does have that pronounced retail space at the corner. And one of the things that we mentioned to the applicant, if there was a need to reduce costs in the way that the project was designed, was to focus a lot of the architectural detail.
Sorry about that.
To focus the architectural detail primarily on Cesar Chavez Street and 6th Street, because those would be the most visible elevations. So on this elevation, you won't see a lot of changes that we requested from the first revision that they made. This is Building A. This is the Tripoli Avenue frontage. And so on this elevation, you can see the changes similar to that. Less towers, you can see on the south side of the project. And then the roof variation is not as pronounced on the new revision. They still maintain a tower element at the corner of 6th Street and Tripoli. And then they have that pronounced retail appearance on that corner as well. The same building, Building A, this is the elevation facing 6th Street. What you're primarily going to see from this elevation, and it's kind of hard to tell, but really the focal point is going to be those towers. That's what you're going to be seeing from 6th Street. Everything to the right is what's going to be behind that commercial center that's shaped like a V at the corner of 6th Street and Cesar Chavez. So you're primarily going to see those towers and the retail space on the first floor on 6th Street. So you could see the difference between building A on the original project. It had a one main featured tower. Here they broke it up into 2. On that elevation, they didn't have any balconies, and this elevation, in the proposed elevation, they do have some balconies for residents facing that elevation. They did introduce some spires. They also introduced those elements that you kind of see that are zigzag elements. Those are elements of Spanish colonial revival design. And so, you know, we think that could be a good design as long as, you know, it has the appearance of kind of like a ceramic decorative feature. And as far as residential entries, I was trying to figure out like, well, how should we think about this? And, you know, how does this work in other cities? This is an example of the development in Long Beach. And so this is right in the middle of the busy part of the city. And they have actually entries off of the street. And this one's a little different because they actually don't have any outdoor space. So it immediately goes into the streetscape. As far as the site improvements, staff did recommend approval of the project with conditions that would establish tree planters near the curb. And that's kind of popular traditional design you see in downtowns, where you have more of those shade trees and it's, you know, close to the street, but also shades the pedestrians that are walking down the street. Now, the reason why we recommended that, this is Pueblo Viejo Villas, and so the trees were on the other side of the sidewalk. And so that really wasn't a consistent design with the Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan for the streetscape. And then I think a lot of that was done because of the savings from the maintaining that sidewalk kind of where it's located, right? The applicant proposes the same thing to kind of repeat this pattern for the Tripoli project, but staff still recommends that we follow this approach with the sidewalk, and you know, we think it's going to be better for pedestrians. It is something that's consistent with the Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan. So, you know, we're going to look for your feedback on it. Something that is going to change is we did encourage in the landscape plan for there to be not just date palms. So there will be date palms, but they're going to be interspersed with shade trees so that we can encourage more shade along the sidewalk. And this is their landscape plan. So the landscape plan does propose the trees on the other side of the sidewalk, similar to Pueblo Viejo Villas. And you can kind of see the staggered approach to the date palms and then the shade trees on Cesar Chavez Street. And let's see what else. The shade trees would be the orchid tree, and I'll show you that in an exhibit shortly. They also provided some really nice improvements. I don't know if I can. This starts. This is not doing what I want it to do, but okay, I'm going to point it out. Hopefully this works. Okay. Are you doing that? Okay. Oh, this button right here? Middle black. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. So this area right here wasn't really well defined. This is actually the back of this parking lot for this commercial center. And so making sure that that area is safe and looks aesthetically pleasing is important. So they do have a walkway that they've included back here. These units are gonna back onto this area. So we do like what they did there. That was kind of important there. And then they did provide some hardscape here, which we thought was gonna be important. So whoever moves into this retail space, if there's some room for outdoor activities, then it kind of lends itself to that. You would have a window on this side of the elevation. These are the trees that have already been proposed. So that Hong Kong orchard is one of the shade trees that would be proposed along Cesar Chavez Street. And the plants and shrubs that have already been approved as part of the landscape palette. As far as zoning consistency, the project was already found to be consistent with the CG zone, with the approval of the changes zone that applied the planned unit development overlay, which allowed them to develop their standards for the site. And this is the location within the Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan. So we tried our best to apply whatever those standards were for that plan. And so they have revised the PUD standards. Basically what they need to revise was the size of the units. And so those were decreased. So the new PUD standards reflect those changes. The project does allow for a density of 38 dwelling units per acre and for a max height of 60 feet. As far as environmental review, the Plan Commission and City Council did find this exempt from CEQA as an infill project, and the revisions, we would still have that same finding. As far as alternatives for the project, there are 4 alternatives available to the Plan Commission. One is to adopt the resolution that staff prepared, which would, I'm sorry, this is actually for the Plan Commission to approve, to recommend approval to the City Council, which would be to approve conditional use permit 351 and architectural review revisions subject to findings and conditions in the staff report. And so the applicant did provide their own revisions to the conditions that they were requesting approval from the Plan Commission and City Council. Staff isn't in agreement with all of the changes requested in the conditions. And so that's why we prepared the resolution that we did in alternative 1. Alternative 2 would be to adopt the resolution, but adopt the attachment that includes the applicant's conditions of approval with the revisions. They provided those in strike changes. Both of those conditions are in front of you. They're in 2 separate documents. And then the third alternative would be not to approve the resolution and maintain the existing approvals. Though the applicant has expressed that original design would be cost prohibitive and the project probably would no longer be able to proceed. And then fourth would be to continue this item, provide staff and the applicant with direction. And so staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission adopt the staff recommended resolution with the findings and conditions as recommended. And that's the end of my presentation. I'm available to answer questions. I can also go, we could even do a page turn on the conditions of approval to go through each of the conditions that are requested by the applicant to be revised one by one. And sometimes that might be good for an application like this so that we understand what the applicant is trying to achieve with those conditions. So if you'd like, I can go over those conditions that they're requesting to change. But I'd like to see feedback from the Plan Commission.
Thanks, Gabe. I think that might be appropriate, but does the commission have any comments or questions on this item at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to, did you guys change the roof plan on the building? Because I noticed the second revision, it looks more like a parapet wall than a gable roof. Is that correct?
Do you,
Can we
before we-
introduce the team to let you know?
We'll actually open up the public hearing in just one,
Okay.
yeah. So I guess the way we'll do it is maybe if the commission can raise their questions or in their comments so that when they come up, they're able to address them. And I don't know if you guys wanted Gabe to go over each condition as he had mentioned. There are quite a few pages on here.
Yeah, and I would just advise it
Mhm.
for what they're requesting. So we can do
Okay.
that.
I'm,
All right.
I'm good with that. I don't know if anybody has any opposition to that.
Okay, so you should have the attachment for the
Mhm.
applicant requested changes in front of you. There were some minor changes that we had accommodated, which were just like a correct permit number. But the substantive condition changes were, they wanted to remove number 8, which was to add 2 on-site parking spaces for van pools. As far as staff, we don't have any major opposition to that, but it's really something that if the plan commission wants to remove that condition. And then number 11, removing this sentence about purple pipe for water lines shall be installed along the entire Avenue 48 street frontage. And so that looked like it was a carryover, probably from another project. And so staff is okay with removing that as well.
Did the city engineer have anything to comment on that specifically?
And Andrew Simmons, our city engineer, he is available and participating in this meeting. So I don't know if he has anything to say about that, but I'm not sure if he would advise to remove that. But what this mentions is that it's for Avenue 48. And this is not
Okay.
Avenue 48.
Thank you.
Number 14 is that it says all plans shown are considered conceptual. It's actually a repeat of condition 4, so we agree to that. Number 16, it says all first floor dwelling units facing the public street shall have a rear patio gate. That's their change that they're requesting, instead of a front door accessible from Baghdad Avenue, Tripoli Street, Cesar Chavez Street.
Trying to add some explanation to some of these ways going to the end.
Do you want to, because the other way,
I'm trying to communicate together, but I'm not sure how to do it.
well, I'm still doing my presentation. So if you're going to go over these one by one, I could defer to you. You want to do that one by one at the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm waiting for that.
If the applicant's going to do that already, we can allow them to be able to do that. And then the plan commission can ask staff questions based on the requested changes.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. Otherwise, we'll do this twice.
Twice, right? Okay, so we're gonna, is Henry's on, right? We're able to open up the public hearing and do that, okay. Okay, so at 6:49 PM, we're gonna go ahead and open up the public hearing, and this will allow the applicant to also be able to assist with some of the questions that we have.
Thank you so much for having us here today. We really super appreciate it. I'm Colleen Edwards. I work for Chelsea Investment Corporation, and our team is, I'm the development executive. We have our project manager, who is Alex Earl. We have Dave Davis, who does our entitlements and is kind of spearheading the project. I think he has it built in his head already. And we brought the architect as well, Mark Longstaff with McKinley Longstaff. And he's done a terrific job of the redesign to help match the project to the available resources. Okay, so speaking of resources, affordable housing is financed with competitive tax credits. So we get to go out there and compete against all the other affordable housing proposed projects in the state twice a year. We are in great position to finance this project and get an award on November 30th. And that's what we're excited about. But the climate changes based on the economy. And in this round, in order to achieve that, we were very strategic. So there looks like there's going to be 55 projects that can be financed. And we just got in under the line. We're number 47, we think. So, so we didn't leave any resources on the table. But that said, the design element that Alex and I work with is money. The budget is tighter than we had hoped. And that's really the genesis of these requests, is to match the budget with what we're going to build. And we've got 2 main aspects that we're trying to to do. We're trying to make a beautiful project similar to the previous one that we built across the street. So we feel that those design standards were great, and it's a beautiful project and a terrific addition to the downtown. The second thing that we're working with the city on is the offsites. And this is a pretty challenging project with regard to offsites. We did several walks to figure out what the forest of utility poles is there. These are more utility poles than I've ever confronted on a project in my career. So there's over 30 of them with power undergrounding, all of those types of things. So it's a pretty intense effort. And what we're trying to do is understand every aspect of the project, deliver a beautiful project, which Mark has done a great design for, and then pick up all those offsites and do all those types of things. So the fellow that has all the information for you guys about the conditions and the changes is Dave. So unless you'd like to hear from other members of our team, but we're all here to help explain what the requests are and why we're making them.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Davis. I think the last time we were here, we had a different architect. And so like Colleen says, in order to match the budget that we put in for our TCAC application, we need to bring the cost down on the project. We just simply could not afford the previous architect. And I could not convince them to build something that was affordable, because what they were coming up with was something that was more market rate. You know, we want our projects to be beautiful or compete with market rate, but they're just not. We don't get any more rents or revenue regardless of what the building looks like. That's set by the state. So we hired Mark Longstaff, who's worked on many projects for Chelsea and has that affordable eye and still, you know, create the beauty for the building. So that's and just changing architects, just the structure itself, we saved over $1 million just in the framing and the development of the building. So that's why some of the units are a little smaller, because we were able to go from 4 stories to 3 stories for both buildings. We realized we concede that the city does want elevators in both buildings, so we have that cost built in. And then, so with that, I just want to go over some of the conditions, and I wanted to start with this sheet right here, where you had some statistics comparing the old original approved project with the new proposal. And so you have that in front of you? Or-
You pull up in the,
I think it's sheet 30.
what specifically?
Yeah, there you go. So the community space, the previous community space was 1948. Our new proposed community space is 2,200 feet. So it's bigger.
Okay, I didn't have any of these square footages, so I based it on.
I'm not arguing. This
Okay.
was all sent to you, but I'm not. And then on the building A, we have 2 spaces now, and those are a total of 2,200 square feet. I think you gotta go down to the next slide, maybe. Yeah, so it's instead of 2,062, we have 2,200 square feet, so we've increased the commercial.
Okay.
And then building B is 2,125. So our total commercial now is 4,325. And so I just want to, those are pluses, so we have more commercial. And then I'm going to have a hard time comparing what your conditions say, and so I'm just going to go with what I marked up and sent you, and I appreciate you sharing that with the planning commission.
Sorry, before you continue, I know you went over like the community, the commercial space and the community room. Is there any change between the unit sizes that are the original that were approved and the new ones?
I believe you've got the unit sizes correct.
Yeah. I have to pull those.
Didn't check, I didn't have a chance to check those,
Okay,
but that looks correct. Yeah, they are a little bit smaller.
yeah,
And that's what enables us to go from 4 stories to 3 stories, which saved another few hundred. Each one of these items I'm going to discuss, I didn't want to go through and nitpick, and I'm not trying to save $10,000, $5,000. I'm trying to save hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so that's what I really want to emphasize, that in order to make this project work and for us to accept the award, we need to get this cost down. Otherwise, we're not going to build a building that we're going to lose money on. That'd be silly. So does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
think so. I
So
know,
it
I got the
is,
question.
so did you take a look at the square footage is the same, then it's accurate what we have,
I
what we
did.
were
This looks
presented
correct
with,
to me, yeah.
right? Okay,
Yeah, that's
thank you. Just wanted to double check
Yeah.
that.
Was
Thank you.
was that correct? The question I asked earlier, that you guys did change the roof line from a gable roof to a parapet wall, is that?
Mark, can you answer that?
Yes. I can't speak to the original architecture. I can only from what I've seen from the elevations, but ours is more of a mansard roof. We have to allow for enough room on the roofs for solar and all of our mechanical to be up there. The ones I was previously showing, those big hip roofs and stuff like that, I don't know where you put your solar or your AC condensers, probably all have to go on the ground.
They had accommodated for utility space, didn't they?
Excuse me?
On the first drawings, there was a space also for utility space for solar panels, for air conditioning.
It was more conceptual in nature, so if you're looking at that roof line, that would be covered with solar, you wouldn't really see the roof. And then all of the, what Mark's saying is mechanical, your air conditioning units.
Yeah.
Some of your hot water heaters and all that stuff would have to be on surrounding the building, so that's not shown on the building either. So, but the way we do it now, we have a roof
Mansard
comes
roof.
up and comes
No,
back
it's a
down, and then slab,
parapet
and all
wall.
the equipment is hidden.
Yeah.
Okay. And then your elevations on the commercial space, what size are those?
I'm gonna get, you mean the height?
Like,
I'm gonna get.
Okay.
I just try to like stay a little organized.
Okay.
Get all scattered
ahead.
and green. So yeah, Gabriel did get this. He did add some of the conditions. I think the key ones, I mean, this is a minor one, the van pools. I don't know, what is that, state requirement or? why are you
No,
requiring
it was a suggestion by one of the staff members.
it? We're tight on parking and I can put those in, but that's gonna reduce guest parking and everything else, so. We'll talk about that later. So we do have the elevators for building A and B. The purple pipe water line, I mean, that comes out, like you said, it's a leftover. But that's still showing up in your current conditions of approval.
Yeah.
14, I think we discussed that one, that comes out. I think the numbers might be a little bit different than yours, but I'm going off my sheet. So the first floor dwelling units facing the public streets shall have front door accessible. So these, we have patios on these buildings, so it's just kind of a statement that doesn't sound right, because all the front doors come off a common corridor through the middle of the building. Those are the front doors. The back of the buildings have a patio door that leads out of the patio.
Mhm.
And then our intention is to take that and provide a walkable access out to the existing sidewalk.
Mhm.
And so it's just sort of a misnomer. You really don't have front doors like on those public streets or back doors. But anyway, the way I rewrote this, I tried to clarify that. The ceiling height on the commercial, we discussed that. We went back and forth. The previous architect, I couldn't get it. We argued about it. So we currently have 9 feet. I think it's 1 inch. We have 9 feet 1 inch over on Pueblo Viejo. There's a couple different ways to resolve this. One of them is to, well, in order to create a 15-foot height in the commercial, that means that all the residential units on the ground floor would also be 15-foot in height. And so it changes that whole second plate, and that cost is like $400,000 or $500,000 when I'm done. That's what it, because it just kind of wrecks the building. It doesn't work, you know. The way we make affordable housing work, it's kind of boring and repetitive. You know, not the facade, but the insides and how it works. We have all all the plumbing stacks up and all this, everything's just aligned so that we don't have any additional cost. And when you do that, it adds a tremendous amount of cost to the project. So we want to stick with the 9 feet. That's the most we can get without running into extreme cost.
Right, I think we took the windows too, so we've done some design charrettes and figured out and had a lot of discussion and talked with the city and, how do we give the look that you guys want? We've taken those windows up much higher, so that they're to the floor plates, I think.
Yeah. The windows sit up basically at 9 feet, so it's floor to ceiling.
If you're gonna
glass.
speak, can you come up to the, so we can get it on the, it won't go into the record.
Sure, we raised the glazing at the community building and the commercial to 9 feet, so it is floor to ceiling glass. And that gives sort of the illusion. We've also raised sort of that surrounding plinth that encompasses the commercial area up to the bottom of the balconies above, again, to give it some more height. And then instead of where we had the original awnings on Pueblo, we took these awnings and raised them up even higher. So we're given the illusion that the commercial space is much higher, but we're still trying to stay with our efficiency with structure.
So is that the same for the community center also?
Yes,
But just to make sure that this is accurate, on here, it says that the 15 feet is what's consistent with the Pueblo Viejo guidelines?
Yeah, so the plan commission has a lot of latitude with this. The Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan, like those are guidelines. So if they were to deviate from it, they don't have to apply for a variance like if there was a zoning standard, right? So it's really up to the plan commission on how to apply the revitalization plan. So they're proposing the 9 feet. What I did mention in the staff report is that I have seen other projects where they've done the higher first floor. That project was entirely first floor commercial in that development, a San Diego development, and that might have something to do with it. So based on what Mr. Davis was saying, but I know we've talked about this first floor height for quite a while since this project was kind of being thought of, and we mentioned we wanted to achieve a higher height for retail, one, to make sure it works, but at that time I think they were thinking they could get maybe 12 feet. But now it's like 9 feet. So really, in my staff report, I mentioned that we want your feedback on this, the plan commission, what's appropriate height considering this project.
Is this the project in San Diego and next to Chicano Park? Is that correct?
yes, Mercado.
Yeah. So what's the ceiling height on that commercial?
That would be higher because that's a wrapped
That's
building.
30 feet, isn't it?
The ceiling height?
Yeah.
No. I didn't do that, but I know that it's not 30 feet in the commercial space, but that's a different building type, right? So you drive into the center, it's called a wrap building where the parking structure is on the inside. So that allows you to have a lot more freedom going around the exterior. So in this case, the only way to achieve a 12-foot, and that was what the previous architect had, was 12 feet. He was raising the entire grade 3 feet around the entire project, right? So you're gonna have to bring in a ton of dirt, and then he left the commercial level at the lower level, but then you would have to chase all your ADA accessible ramps from your parking all the way around in order to make up that 36 inches. And as you know, at a 1 in 12, to go up 3 feet is a lot of ramping and a lot of steps and stairs and site work that costs a lot of money.
And just to raise the site 3 feet, which is on the next item, is would be about $400,000 to find that dirt, raise that site 3 feet. The site is absolutely flat. That's why initially I thought we could get 12 feet because it would be similar to Pueblo Viejo where there's ramp around, but this site is just, it's just dead flat.
Commissioner Figueroa, I think you had a comment or a question.
What was your ceiling height on the project across the street? The public 9 feet.
9 feet.
Okay.
Just matching that. Item 18, and then 19 is the request to raise the finished floor 3 feet above, just bring in 3 foot of fill on the entire site, which does not make any sense at all. Then there was a bunch of recommendations that Gabriel was, trying to enhance the building with, and we just can't afford to do all the things. We did what we could, met several times. I thought we had a clear understanding of where we were heading, and yet I'm finding new conditions that concern today. The next one was really costly, and I believe this was about a $450,000 item, was doing the boosted clay tile. And you could explain that somewhat, or?
So a boosted tile system or clay tile system is taking, it comes in percentages. You can do 10%, 20%, 30%, but it undulates the tiles all over, so it doesn't look like they're all kind of in a row. Like if you look down at your library, you see the S tile that's on the building. You would see a bunch of kind of just tiles that stick up and are boosted a little bit more with more cement underneath it to give it more of a old world look or more Spanish revival look.
Mhm.
But a clay tile, as you know, is more expensive than a typical concrete tile. And we are 31 feet up in the air right now. And to do that would be quite the expense to be able to do that, not only for material, but for labor as well. And I did mention to Gabriel that there are tiles out there that are blended tiles. So you can kind of get that wavy feel, but you keep the cost down.
What do you have across the street?
It's just regular concrete tile. Nothing boosted. The boosting, because you have to go there and boost, the roofer is going to have to come in and he'll, depending on what the percentage of the boost is, how much you're boosting it throughout, he'll have to pack all that cement in there. So he's not just laying one tile after the other. He's going to stop, get more cement, boost that tile, go over here, boost this tile. And it's really like an artisanship because he'll want to get down and look at it to see how the tiles are looking, because you can really mess it up if you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, so that's for clay tile, not concrete
Right.
tile. Yeah.
And that's a pretty big expense too, and clay tiles, and they break quite easily and things like that. It's a beautiful look,
I was gonna say it's gorgeous.
but it's not something that we can afford to do.
If you don't mind me interjecting real quick. So what's not in this condition on their version is the change that I added. And it says, if you look on the staff recommended change at the end, it says if the aforementioned roof treatment consistent with Spanish colonial revival is demonstrated to be infeasible for the development, the applicant shall propose roofing that provides appearance, and just missing that, the appearance of Spanish colonial revival architecture as demonstrated with boosted roof tiles and mortar packing at roof edges, roof ridges, and to the satisfaction of the development service director. So what that would mean is, I think there's like two ways to do that. Kind of what the architect mentioned, which is blending the tiles, which I think you're meaning by color, right? The color.
Absolutely, yes.
And then the other is what other people do, like the Walgreens that is in Coachella. What they do, they have some of the mortar packing like at the edges, and then they have kind of scattered tiles that are boosted, but it's still concrete tile, right? So there's different ways to do it. I think what he's suggesting is probably their most affordable approach, which is doing the blended tile. You won't have an idea what that looks like on this plan since it's like a consistent color, but it would probably be different shades of red, right, on the roof.
So here's what I'm up against. We're getting ready to accept an award at the end of November. If we accept that award, I have to start construction by May. That's my 6-month deadline. And I can't have conditions that are wiggling around because right now my architect's on hold. He can't start. And it's gonna take him 60 days to prepare the plans. I gotta go through the permitting process, and I'm up against the wall right now. And
So a question for you
have all
about
these
that.
wiggly conditions is not really working.
Yeah, a question about that. So what's the award and what's the difference that you were expecting? So I know some of these conditions had already been approved and we've seen you before. So what's the difference now? What were you expecting and what are you receiving now?
Right, so the design, when you're in financing, the design is on one side, and what you do with your financing is you assume that this is a typical affordable development. And you know that you have, in this case, challenging offsites and a lot of other requirements. And so our finance team is very good, and they look at the atmosphere of what's going on, what we typically can pay to build a building. And they hit the strategy perfectly. So they got as much resources as they possibly could, but it was under the assumption that the building could be built for typical per square foot types of prices. And then what we did was send the previous design to the estimating department simultaneously, and there's a mismatch. So what we assumed was that we would be able to come here and work with you guys to make the building as beautiful as the Pueblo Viejo villas, but not as expensive as the originally proposed design. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Makes sense.
So you've met with staff already, you said a couple times. Have you guys come to,
I thought we did. Until I got the conditions of approval.
yeah,
And you said you just got them today?
I got it Monday.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Okay.
I don't know, I think it would make sense as maybe to send it back to staff, and then we need to meet right after you guys meet and try to resolve this. And then,
I don't
you know,
if
we
it's
could sit
involved,
here,
but I
we
think
Sure it is.
we explained everything to Gabriel and he comes back and puts in what he wants. So I'm not sure how to.
well, I mean,
Well, I think
I
it's
like
also,
Gabriel. Can I
we
agree?
like Gabriel, right? I think it's
Great
I think it's also, what we're trying to do is, you know, we're trying to stay consistent with what we have planned for this area.
Yeah.
And so we understand, right, where you're coming from, and what she was able to explain it, it makes perfect sense. But I don't think Gabriel is just putting in whatever it is he wants. I think he's trying to stay consistent with what we're trying to do in this area. So.
Right, so what we are thinking is that the current project that is already built is successful and the design is successful.
Mhm.
So if we can stick in that neighborhood, but not boring, like, oh, let's do the exact same project across the street. No, so we'll do something that was influenced by the original design, but also kind of updated, kind of relating to the existing design, and then we know we can build it, and we know it fits within the financing.
And when we built Pueblo Viejo, we were told to match the library.
Mhm.
And I thought we did that pretty good and even a little bit better. I think this building's gonna be a little bit better than Pueblo. You. No?
Absolutely.
Wrong question.
of course. He said, of course.
Because we've taken some of the lessons learned and changed some details, and are being strategic about how we improve the design and take care of a few things like the commercial, I think is a good solution.
I just, you know, my position is I think that, you know, obviously, we don't want to chase you guys away. We want to work with you guys. And I'm gonna tell you, Gabriel's a pretty reasonable guy. I think that if he can come to some kind of resolution and then bring it back to commission, we'll approve it, you know, and move on with the project. But I think that, you know, if he's recommending something, it's something that
Oh.
definitely that we're gonna require.
That's what I wanted.
I wanna
That's what I wanted to ask. I understand there's 4 different options, correct? Gabriel, which option do you feel would be the most viable that would address
Well, let's
their
do that.
concerns and also staff's concerns?
Well, I think he showed us the option, but it's up to the commission to see what we see, or what we think is best. But
He's been in negotiation with,
Commissioner Figueroa had a comment or a question. I
No, I'm
think.
gonna yield the floor
Okay.
to my friend
I
here.
just got 2 more main items that we disagree upon. One of them was that, I think it's condition, I don't know what it is on the new ones, but I'm looking at number 22, which has the steel hand trowels, condition finished, slightly undulating. I mean, that's another $500,000 cost to the building. We just don't have the money to do that. And so we, you know, our standard finish across the street on Pueblo Viejo is a standard 60-40 sand finish. That's what I recommended. That's not what was put in the conditions, so. And I think the other one is the planters along Cesar Chavez. When we did Pueblo Viejo, there's an existing 5-foot sidewalk there. We put in those trees, you know, it looks even nicer now that the landscaping is complete. And we're just proposing that same treatment of Gabriel's commission. There's nothing wrong with the sidewalk that's there, and make that wider and put in tree wells, it's not 6th Street, it's a different street. Our goal on this project is to get, my main goal is to get the building built. That's number 1. Get the project built. Number 2 is to get all the improvements that Andrew Simmons likes, or complete 6th Street. You know, we're trying to cobble together enough money to finish 6th Street and Cesar Chavez, you know, all the landscaping on the south side. We're still talking to Andrew about that.
Yeah.
And then there's also a little reconstruction of a crosswalk at Baghdad and Cedar Chavez that we're trying to pull off. So those are the main 3 items. So-
Yeah, so the offsites, as I mentioned, the 30 poles, that forest of poles over there is very, very expensive to underground. So, you know, that's why we were asking for consideration to keep the existing sidewalk on the Cesar Chavez side only. And upgrade, we're trying to do the upgrades on the 6th Street and really make that look nice on that side.
What's the condition of the sidewalk, Gabriel? Do you know?
I think if Andrew's still on the line, probably be good to ask Andrew that question to see if it's.
Broken sidewalk, we'll fix that. That's not an issue. We do that all the time.
Andrew,
Broken sidewalk, curb and
are you,
gutter.
are you
Yeah,
still
we don't
on the
have a
phone?
brand new development with an old beat up sidewalk.
Yeah, I know,
So-
Are you still on Zoom? Yeah, there he is.
Yes.
Thank you.
The question was the status of the sidewalk, the condition on Cesar Chavez.
I mean, it's not impassable. It's not defective, but, I mean, generally speaking, when you have a new project, a new concrete everywhere, leaving a small patch of old concrete will, I mean, certainly stand out. We had a similar situation at Palm Desert School where they tried to kind of mix and match, where they put in the new concrete and the old concrete. But as soon as the new concrete went in, it just really highlighted, the old concrete being older and not in as good a quality. And then we ended up, paying an extra in order to go ahead and replace it all anyway.
So that's
So-
versus Pueblo Viejo Villas. On the one side, you probably didn't even notice that the Cesar Chavez side is the old concrete and it looks fine.
And then
know.
also, you're also not gonna touch that corner. If you look at the map, that property owner, that's old concrete. So that whole,
Yeah.
that, so
Yeah.
then if we're gonna fight over like 5 little things of concrete, right there, that's their property. They have to be liable for that. People are, I don't wanna fight over 5 pieces of concrete, like.
Sure, so here's the thing, there's many more offsites than what you're looking at
Yeah.
right there. Like, we're being asked to reconfigure the intersection of
Mhm.
6th and Cesar Chavez to make it safer
Mhm.
and have a right-hand turn lane. So we have some money as far as that's concerned. We do need to spend a little more time with Andrew to make sure that what we've budgeted is what needs to happen. So it's not just the undergrounding, it's that reconfiguration. It's a lot of requested work along 6th Street and some other things too. So there's quite a bit. So you just have to do trade-offs at some point because it just doesn't all fit within the budget, unfortunately.
And
Any particular preference, Gabe, on the 4 options that we have? Staff recommendation?
Oh, for the alternatives?
Yeah. the staff
Yeah, I mean,
recommendation.
we still have our recommendation, but I think it's good to talk about the conditions and see what's most important for the planning commission. Like, if you already know what you're okay to live without, if you want, so to speak, or, you want to, you think something's really important, like, I think the streetscape is really important, right? I think it's more important than if the roof needs to change or anything like that. Like, but that's what matters to me. And there might be certain things that matter more to you as a planning commission. And ultimately, I want to see the project happen, right? And so I'm always going to be the person that's going to push for better design, right? And encourage the planning commission to do that. But I think there are some things that probably would be good to hear, that what's important to you, right? Because I think when people walk down Cesar Chavez, to have a nice streetscape, that's probably going to matter more to someone walking down the project and seeing that there's boosted tile in the building, right? Or that the residential units are 3 feet above the ground floor. But so I have certain things that I think might make the project better. But I think also the applicant needs feedback to understand, is it okay to remove some of these things on here and still make it look like a good project? Is the project that you see in the presentation the kind of project you'd like to see,
Mhm.
and it's already good, and then, some of these conditions could be removed. But one thing, I noticed that our city engineer wanted to mention something, so
Yes.
you might want to chime in.
I'm
on
sorry.
the site plan.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I don't recall what I was going to mention. But one of the council or one of the planning commission members did make a good comment that there will be some old concrete that will remain adjacent to the existing business to the north. So having some additional sidewalk remain in front of the residential portion of the Tripoli project, where there will not be the landscaping between the sidewalk and the curb. There's really no reason to take that sidewalk out there. In front of the commercial area where the proposal is to place landscaping curb adjacent, all that sidewalk comes out anyway, because of the landscaping that would be curb adjacent in front of the commercial section at the corner of Baghdad and Cesar Chavez. So if we're only talking, like I said, about a couple panels just in front of the north half of the project, if it stays in, it's not going to negatively affect the overall streetscape, as long as they have the landscaping in between the sidewalk and the residential areas. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on is it's been very difficult to hear Dave Davis when he's been speaking at the microphone. When people are speaking at the microphone, if they could just try to stand closer to the microphone when they're speaking instead of standing off to the side. For us who are on Zoom, it's difficult to hear.
Thanks, Andrew. Gabe, when you were referring to item number 27, is it that one, the planters with tree gates shall be installed every 17? Is that the one you were referring to right now?
Yes.
Okay. Can we just go over really quickly? I think it's condition number 49. And it's precise grading, provide and record a reciprocal use and maintenance agreement to assure common ingress and egress, joint maintenance, all of that. Can we kind of talk about that a little bit? I think it was crossed off from.
Yeah, thank you. The reason I crossed that off is because this is all one property, is one ownership. And so it's just a condition that's not required.
Okay.
And it's the same thing would apply to condition 57, which is CC&Rs. It's all one property.
Oh,
so
yeah, that was
doesn't
my
make
next
sense.
question, is the CC&R one.
So those are both standard engineering conditions, and they apply to when you have multiple owners within a property. So their request to strike both of those conditions would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
And to comment on Andrew Simmons, in front of the commercial areas, it'll be 100% concrete, decorative concrete on both 6th Street, Tripoli, and then per Gabriel's request, we've also wrapped that concrete around the sides for additional tables, umbrellas, and things like that.
Gabe, can you talk a little bit more about 49? I'm just concerned about the maintenance part. The agreement between maintenance, so who's going to maintain like the
49
Yeah.
on theirs?
on theirs, yes.
Okay, I think I have something here already that addresses.
That addresses that.
So let me find the petition. Okay, so on 65,
Mhm.
on the staff recommended
Okay,
conditions.
I see it.
So for the site landscaping, it says at the end, the applicant shall enter into a landscape agreement with the city prior to issuance of C of O to ensure the proposed landscaping on site and right of way of the project front is maintained in that first class condition. So that's been the maintenance agreement condition that we've been adding for like some of like the new rehabilitated projects,
Right.
some of the commercial centers. Really just to make sure that that happens,
Mhm.
because a lot of times we just kind of experience that wasn't happening.
Was that, so that's a different number than was that crossed off on there?
There's this 40.
No, theirs was more about, so kind of what they mentioned, like if you have like two properties and it's a
Okay.
larger project, you need CCNRs and agreement to make
Right.
sure things are being maintained.
So on 49 on theirs is what number on yours, because it's the numbering and off because of that
Mhm.
one double.
Yeah, and so the reason the numbering changed is because there was recommended changes on the conditions, which renumbers everything. So that one is
47.
47, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think the site landscaping, and the fact that, you know, it needs to stay maintained, I think that's important because we do have development and we've had issues with code enforcement in certain sites where they don't have any maintenance, and we just see it get worse and worse over time. So I don't know if that is something that they're agreeing to or not. Sorry, I just,
No, we maintain our sites very, they're very beautiful. I have no problem having a condition that says you need to maintain the perimeter of your site to
okay,
Yeah.
look respectable and awesome, you know?
perfect. Just
I
wanted to
would-
verify on that one, because, okay.
So could you then reword that
Mhm.
49 on theirs to state that, just so that it's on there, that they'll have to make sure.
Yeah, because it's crossed off
Yeah.
on theirs.
So because the wording on here is that the reciprocal use and maintenance agreement, which is, and then there's perspective, won't be agreement with the city. It's an agreement that they're gonna have their own maintenance agreement and they're gonna be consistent with the maintenance. And of course, if they're not, then, you know, you go through the whole code enforcement process. But
I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand how that would be worded. So you're saying aside from an agreement with the city, they would have their own agreement?
it would not be like a direct agreement with like the city having an agreement, they have to pay the city for the maintenance because they already pay maintenance.
Mhm.
So the proposed here it would be that it ensures that they have a maintenance agreement in place. Right? Is that what you were?
But the agreement would have to be with the city, though.
To be enforceable, well,
Right, I
maybe
mean-
Henry can chime in on how
Yeah.
best to word that, and if the other condition 65 achieve that, but.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Henry, do you
just
have-
as long as there's some,
Yeah, as long as it's consistent.
yes,
Yeah.
some consistency between, because 65 sounds, it looks
Okay,
good.
yeah, that's something you're talking about. I had
Yes,
not read that one
65,
before, okay.
but on theirs 49, which is, I think, supposed to be that one, it's crossed off. So I just want to make sure there's like consistency that, you know, with that.
Henry, I don't know if you could hear that, but there's two conditions, one that addresses reciprocal access and maintenance, and then the other one that addresses the maintenance agreement with the city.
What's it condition 49 and condition 65?
65.
The
Yeah,
numbers
40
are off.
The
okay.
numbers are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the numbers are
49,
way-
so 49 says, provide a recorded reciprocal use and maintenance agreement to assure common ingress and egress, and joint maintenance of all common access, parking areas and drive, which we're recommending to remove because there's only one property owner and one parcel. And then on 65, it's that we have a condition that says, at the end of the condition, it says the applicant shall enter into a landscape agreement with the city prior to issuance of C of O to ensure that all proposed landscaping on site and right of way of the project frontage is maintained in a first class condition.
So,
Henry, do you know what the question is? So the question is should we have both of those, or is there a need to kind of keep a separate condition separate from 65? To ensure maintenance is happening on site.
Well, the city has the police powers even without the landscape agreement, because I think that we've been through this before, Gabriel. So I don't think that we would need 65 if that's going to be an issue that would stall a project.
No, I don't even think that's the question, Henry. I think everyone's okay with 65.
Yeah, it's,
No, everyone's wondering if 49 needs to be in there, by the way it's worded.
Excuse me, I'm not okay with the additional language that you placed on 65. That's different than what was on our 65 originally.
your,
It is, yes.
can you double check
That's-
because
that's
ours,
my viewpoint. that
Yeah.
They don't,
Yeah, I'm
that they
looking at-
don't need that agreement.
You don't need an agreement. No, we got it right here. The original conditions of approval by the planning commissions and city council said the site landscaping shall be maintained in good condition at all times. And the owner operator of the facility shall be responsible for replacing any damaged, dead, or decayed landscaping as soon as practical in accordance with the approved landscape plans. The new 65 says that, and then at the end was added, the applicant shall enter into a landscape agreement with the city prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy to ensure that all proposed landscaping on site and right of way of the project frontage is maintained in a first-class condition. I don't think that addition is necessary. I think the original condition was just,
so, thank you for that. So 65 on the staff, on the staff packet with the conditions, it's 67 on theirs, on the applicant.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So-
Any other questions?
And I think Andrew could probably answer the question on 49.
The agenda packets that are available online do not include any of the conditions. So I'm trying to look at the same document you guys are looking at so I can be referencing the same numbers that you're referencing.
Andrew, they're on there. There's two separate attachments. One is an attachment to the recommended resolution. And then there's a separate one that says alternative exhibit A.
There was another item that was added was on condition 51, your new conditions of approval. I think it's item G. That's the one where Andrew suggested putting in some diagonal parking
Mhm.
in front of the commercial on 6th Street.
Mhm.
There's just not enough room in there, so, but I'll work that out with Andrew.
That's kind of
But
dangerous.
I don't think that should be a
Diagonal
condition of
parking?
approval.
And Andrew and I talked about that
Sixth
All of
earlier.
6th Street is parallel
Okay.
parking. You're just gonna take that one section and it takes away from the area in front of the commercial. where there's gonna be
Ha-
seating.
How about you do parallel parking? Would you do time zone parking
I don't know what that means.
where it's limited time parking right there?
That's up to the city. It's a city
That,
street.
you know, but
We'll put in
that's
whatever
all,
signs
that's
the
all
city
people,
wants.
yeah.
Andrew, would you like to provide comment on that? We talked about that earlier. I think you weren't
On G.
100% set on that, if the planning commission wanted to remove that condition.
The request for the diagonal parking at the frontage rather than the parallel parking.
On 6th Street.
Yeah, that's where we just completed the sidewalks and the curb and gutter per the 6th Street plans. So that portion is built.
They did propose a plan that had the parallel parking adjacent there. So I think that diagonal parking only gave us like an extra 2 spots. They have not submitted. They've not submitted street plans yet. So I would recommend potentially wording that in a way that they attempt to maximize street front parking on 6th Street. Rather than specifically calling out that it is required to be parallel or diagonal. That way, as we go through the the street improvement plans that are actually submitted and engineered. We can evaluate that when it comes to grading and slopes and drainage and everything else and make sure that it works rather than specifically specify a certain type of parking. My recommendation would be to say maximize street front parking on 6th Street.
The only other comment from a financial standpoint is, once again, this is ripping up newly placed concrete on the front of the building, which seems like a waste of public funds for one. And we're not going to have enough money for old offsites that we would like to do and that I think the city would like to do in other areas. So we would just ask to keep the newly placed concrete there.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
I'd like to make a comment. Separate from what needs to be considered, modified to keep this project going forward. I make the following observation since we're talking about ingress, egress. In this conditional use permit, there's no section on circulation. I was used to back in the 70s for a section on circulation. Those of us that have lived in the city consider that that point where 6th Street and Cesar Chavez meet is a mess. It's a mess, okay? There's only 2 streets that end up in a diagonal form in the entire city, here and Tyler and Grapefruit Boulevard. There's still time to resolve a potential problem in the future as the city grows on Grapefruit and Tyler. Also on 6th Street and Cesar Chavez. But as the city grows, it's gonna be a worse mess than it is right now in terms of circulation. I make the following observation. The parking area, building 8 of 6th Street, I think should be flipped to be on the northeast corner of 6th Street and Tripoli Way, so that the ingress and egress is off of Tripoli Way and not 6th Street.
So respectfully, we don't own that parcel. We don't have it under site control. So
It
that
isn't your property?
that parking that Mr. Gutierrez is referring to is the parking that's
That's-
associated with the corner retail building.
Okay. I
Okay.
know. Then I reserve that comment. But I don't know why the planning commission, the city did not consider when this project was originally proposed, apply eminent domain, because those 2 existing properties take away from the overall aesthetic of this project.
Yeah,
But
so
that's something that can be resolved in the future.
we were requested to connect with that owner, and I have to say that Alex has called him 10, 15 times, and there are coordination issues that we need to discuss with him, but so we will
Yeah,
continue.
but I don't bring it up to in any way delay the project from moving forward,
Mhm.
okay? I'm just saying it's something that can still happen in the future.
Yes, that makes sense. And then just making sure that everyone does know that we are planning to spend some money and have a budget to work on the intersection of Cesar Chavez and 6th Street in consideration of the angled circulation difficulties that are at that intersection. So we do have to work with Andrew Simmons on that to make sure that we're on the same page as far as what we're planning and what we've budgeted. So to make sure that the scope that we're covering and that we can pay for matches the city's expectations.
I would like to add the additional comment that I think placing Sixth Street at a 90-degree angle is more important than a bird cage.
Noted.
Right, thank you. Any other comments from commissioners at this time? There's a lot, but.
Is there anybody else in the
Yeah.
public comments that wants to talk? I know I'm tired. I'm
Okay.
Good.
Okay, commissioners, we're good for now. Can we see if, does anyone in the public, does anybody have a public comment? If you do, raise your hand at this time. Okay, I see one. I'm just gonna go ahead and call on them, Yurema Arvizo, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for letting me give my comment. I did want to ask if there's been any discussion so far in regards to reserving some of the units for certain community members. So for example, whether some units will be reserved for veterans or some units will be reserved for transitional housing.
Thank you for that question.
I'm Alex with Chelsea. So we have 10 units set aside for CRDP funds, which are for developmentally disabled and family members with a developmentally disabled member. We also have 8 project-based voucher units. And we also have some county home funds in the project that are for supposed to give priority to farm workers. So those are the contemplated populations that are being built into the project in addition to the low-income housing. So hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Yeah, and then will there be a space to discuss possibly securing part of that for transitional housing?
Chair, can we have the public
Yes.
comment to say it's 3 minutes, and then if there's any questions, then we can go ahead and answer them.
Yes, thank you. So for public comment, you have 3 minutes. You'll be able to unmute yourself and ask your question. And then that'll be the only time you'll be able to speak on this particular item. So thank you, Yurema, for your question. Do we have, and if at some point, if you could answer her question, if someone else probably also has additional comments.
So I apologize, I didn't understand the question. So could someone restate it for me, please?
I think she asked about the potential of having transitional housing in that space. if it's in
So
the discussion.
It's all permanent housing. It's a rental apartments. And so the financing actually doesn't work with like transitional homeless housing type of stuff.
Okay.
But we do have units. We are building them. If you're interested in permanent supportive housing for more populations, then we would work together to see how that works. But there are many financial limitations, and the financing sources that we have are kind of maxed out. So for example, on the vouchers, if you have somebody who's homeless, then their income is super low, and they typically, you match them with a voucher, but we can't take any more vouchers on the project without having to pay prevailing wages. So we're paying current market rates for the building of the entire complex, which are pretty high because things are going like gangbusters. At least they have been in the construction industry, but we don't have prevailing wages built in. So those 8 set aside units could be something where if you guys decided, please try to work on making those for permanent supportive housing. That's something that we could work with the county on.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any other public comments at this time? If you have a public comment, please raise your hand and then you will be able to unmute yourself. Okay, don't have any more public comments. Oh. I can barely see. Andrew?
Because I was able to download the packets so we can be on the same page as far as the discussion that was being held earlier regarding some of the conditions.
Okay.
Relative to the condition on engineering condition number 51 -2-G, which is the include diagonal parking along 6th Street to serve the project retail units at the direction of the city engineer. That it also says the city engineer may eliminate the need for diagonal parking if demonstrated by the applicant to be infeasible. I would recommend leaving that condition as is because it already has a caveat built into it that I will work with them to determine if that's feasible. So obviously, in part of that feasibility will be circulation and cost, and if we can obtain adequate parking by having parallel parking instead. So we'll certainly work with them to have that parking as needed. So that I don't think that condition needs to be changed since it already has the caveat that we will work with them and that it may be eliminated.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
The other condition, the one it is condition 55 on the packet, which is provide a set of proposed covenants, conditions, and restrictions. As stated before, I think that one can be completely stricken in accordance with their request, because there are no CC&Rs, and the reference to the WQMP is already covered in a separate area of the conditions.
That was for 55, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the third one that we had been discussing was the landscape item, which is number 65. And then the additional wording was added at the end of it that says the applicant shall enter into a landscape agreement with the city prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. I did not add that condition, so I am not familiar with that wording being added.
Andrew, that's my word.
Okay, so if that is, so I would defer to the planning director if that's wording that they think should still be in there. I believe per general city code requirements, I mean, they are required to maintain all of those areas, just per city code. But if the planning director does feel that a additional landscape agreement would be necessary, I would not be opposed to that. But I would defer to him for his opinion on that.
Chair, this is Henry. So the landscape agreement would just be an additional safeguard for the city to enforce any landscaping issues that may happen. So the city can use its police powers, but it would have to go through code enforcement, and it would be a code enforcement issue instead of like a contractual relationship.
Right.
So the landscape agreement is just an additional safeguard in order to enforce the landscape requirements of the development.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you for that, Henry, and thank you for that, Andrew. Okay. Do we have any other public comments before we close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission? Okay, so at 7:51, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. And taking it back to the commission. We went over a lot of the conditions, which was very helpful. Do commissioners have any additional comments that they'd like to make this time? And just to clarify, Gabe, this is a recommendation for the city council,
For the city council, yeah.
Thank
So this
you.
item still needs to go before them.
before them. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
And just to, I mean, we set this as a special meeting for this item.
Mhm.
So if there was more time that plan commission felt that it needed on this item, we could also, this could also be continued to the meeting next week, right, which we're planning to have. I don't recommend continuing it. I think we could probably work it out. There's enough time to be able to do that here.
Mhm.
But that's, we did schedule this meeting just to make sure that you didn't feel like you had to rush to make a decision.
Right, okay. Would we have to go through each condition just because they're different on both? And the numbers too might be a little bit off. So
You could, if you were gonna deliberate and go off of one set of conditions, I would
Mhm.
just use one or the other and
Okay.
then just reference them. And then if you're agreeing or disagreeing
Yeah.
with the change,
okay.
just let us know which one you want to do that.
Very good.
Who would want to use the applicant's one? Is there?
That would be two. wouldn't it? Conditions recommended.
We can do a hybrid.
Do a-
Combination of both.
And Chair, one of the ways we could do this is just go through each of them one by one, just kind of acknowledge which ones it seems
Yeah.
like there was consensus about. And then there was probably like about 4 or 5 ones
That we were-
like the meaty ones, and they're the ones that are the most could be cost prohibitive for the applicant,
Right,
as they mentioned. So that's
okay.
what I would recommend.
I have a question on the applicant one. They crossed out, well, they added and then crossed it out, 21-04. Maybe that was like a typo or something, because it's not on the staff recommended conditions.
Oh, we probably,
I just want to
Check
make
it
sure we
out.
can like go through with this. It's number 1, literally the first one, the first page. And it says like 22-04, and then they crossed out 21-04. I think
Okay,
that might have been
yeah.
a typo.
I can reference that.
Okay.
So these were original typos from the original conditions of approval.
Okay.
So they just identified that and made the corrections themselves. So
Okay.
those are fine.
Okay, so to start off for general conditions, we are referencing to both the applicant requested changes, and then we're also going to take a look at the staff recommended conditions. So for the first one, it looks like it's okay. Both applicant and staff agreed on it. There weren't any changes other than that one part. Going on to number 2, it looks the same as well. There isn't anything different, so I think we're good unless, and commissioners feel free to let me know at some point if we need to go over one again. And then going into number 3.
We were okay with that. That's
Okay,
fine.
theirs is just in red, but that's okay. Okay. Going into number 4, it's the same, so we're good. Number 5, it looks good. There's consensus there. Number 6 as well. going into number 7, it looks the same. And then on number 8, staff recommends that they add 2 on-site parking spaces for van pools. And then the applicant has crossed that out. Don't know how, I don't think we really discussed that one, the commission, but I don't know if you guys have any comments on that specifically.
As a person that van pools, at least 2 parking spots should be there because it is hard to find parking sometimes for people to have designated, aside from your regular vehicle. So,
Okay.
Do you have van pool parking at the other project?
Do you recall? if there
At
was?
Pueblo?
Yeah,
Viejo? Okay.
Huh?
I believe so.
Yes,
Yes, that
yeah.
one, so, yes.
2?
I don't know how many, you
Oh,
know.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Okay, so I think 2 is, okay. It's just 2. Commissioners, I don't know what you guys feel about that, 1 or 2.
I mean, it's gonna come from that other type of parking, but
Mhm.
How many units in the first project and the second project?
105, the first project, 100.
Well,
And there's 1 van pool parking at the other project. It's relatively the same amount of
then it's
apartments.
fine. Just keep it to 1.
That's fine. We can add those. We'll just have to replace regular parking stalls with.
With-
these.
with 2.
If you replace, not really add.
I seen somewhere with a charging station, is that correct? Or you have some set aside for a charging station?
Do we
Yeah.
have that in the Pueblo Viejo apartment, the villas?
We have several charging stations. The current law is that
Yes,
those stations need to be ready to go, but we don't need to activate them yet.
Okay,
But if
but
we
how many
do-
are allocated for?
I think we have like 11 or 12,
Okay, that many.
wow.
Okay,
That's good.
10% of the project.
okay.
Okay, so let's go back to number 8. I don't know how much they're utilized. 1 or 2,
I would just say 1.
1.
1.
Yeah, I'm good. with it.
1. Okay, so for item number 8, on the conditions, we are in consensus that it will only be 1 designated parking space for van pools. Moving on to number 9, this is where there's a change. The applicant has crossed off. So it reads, the applicant shall work with staff to accommodate an elevator for building A, and then they crossed off if financing for elevator and supporting infrastructure can be identified. So on and so forth.
And that's fine. It's happening, so.
Okay,
Theirs is more updated, so.
Okay. Moving on to number 10, everything looks good there. And number 11, I think it was agreed,
Purple pipe.
right? I think Andrew didn't have a comment on this, the purple pipe water lines. Moving on to number 12, we're good there. Moving on to number 13, no changes there. And then number 14, both parties agreed to remove that. Oh, okay, I see. This is where the numbers change. We have
Yeah.
2 number 14s. Okay, so moving on to number 15, everything is good there. Moving on to number 16. This is where there's a change. The applicant has added all first floor dwelling units facing the public streets shall have a rear patio gate. This one's a little confusing to me, just because it says that it'll have a rear patio gate, and then they crossed off with a fenced patio enclosure. Just trying to make sure I understand that correctly.
So the original condition was trying to achieve a front door
Okay.
to the unit. And they're proposing that not be the case, the front door be on the inside of the project.
Okay, right,
And there only be a rear door that accesses the
to the
patio.
patio in that area, but that patio area will it be fenced?
Yes.
Wall,
Okay.
right?
It's what, sorry?
It's a courtyard.
Okay, courtyard, thank you.
It's a unit patio.
Yeah.
And it's got a block wall around it and a gate
Okay,
So and then it'll have a walk going out to the sidewalk.
okay, kind of like, okay.
That's what I was trying to write it.
It's okay.
Staff doesn't have any major objections to it. I
Okay.
think the major thing that we want to try to achieve is this look where people can access the street.
Right.
Sometimes you can't, and it's all blocked off, and
Mhm.
then doesn't work well with the street scene, so.
Any comment on number 16? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to number 17. Everything is good on there.
No.
No,
Oh, Art, 17. on
number
mine.
17.
You're 17.
Your 17 looks, yeah, and yeah.
I'm
the
sorry, on
staff.
16,
Oh, yeah.
you said fence. Is that wrought iron fence that goes on the gate?
Like tubular steel, yeah.
Oh, two steel, okay.
Okay. Okay, moving on to, so for number 17, everything was, there weren't any changes. For number 18. So for number 18, staff recommends a 15 feet consistent with the Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan guidelines. And the applicant has changed it from 15 to 9.
9 feet 1 inch.
Yes. And then I think they did discuss that the Pueblo Viejo villas are 9 feet, right? So we have that example.
You said the community center is the same height, huh? Is that correct?
Yes.
9-1.
Okay, any discussion on number 18? Okay. We already have the Pueblo and the villas are 9 feet, so I think we have a good example of that. I'm okay with that as well. Okay, moving on to number 19. Theirs is crossed off, so it reads first floor residential level shall be 3 feet above sidewalk level for privacy consistent with the Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan guidelines. Staff has recommended that, and then the applicant has crossed that off.
And Chair and Commission, I provided you an example of what ground floor level access looks like. And so just to give you an idea, if you're comfortable with that.
Okay, any comments from commissioners on that specifically? I guess for reference for us, do you have this in the villas as well? Or was-
There's many areas that are level with the sidewalk.
Okay.
And because the street grade drops off, and the finished floor of the building is flat, that it kind of gradually creeps up.
Mhm.
And then, so there's both conditions.
You have 3 feet and then 0.
I don't think it's quite 3 feet, but it's like a couple feet anyway. Yeah, we have 2 feet, 0 feet, yes.
Commission, the only thing I would say is like 19 and 18 go hand in hand. So if you do make one 9 feet, then the 3 feet above sidewalk no longer works. You know what I'm saying? Because
Okay.
it's all the same.
Not applicable.
It'll be
area.
the same.
Yeah.
Okay, then, well, we agreed to the 9 feet, so, so there's a consensus that we will leave that crossed off number 19. Moving on to number 20. This is a good one.
Yeah.
So they have almost they have everything crossed off on number 20.
Our number 20 has 4 additional conditions.
That's right, thank you.
From city staff.
And I could speak to the additions. So the
Okay.
one I added is if the window shutters are to be used, they should be blue or sage green, similar to the original color of the original design. And there's a reason for that. Can I pull up the PowerPoint real quick?
We can live with the conditions the way Gabriel wrote these.
The additional or all of them for number 20?
What he has present on
A to H.
on his number 19.
On his number, so all of those,
Yeah, I think we're
okay,
it.
with the exception of he has crossed off A.
He has crossed off A, EI.
Yes.
And then.
Yeah, well, the
H,
ones he's crossed
I-
off too, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is good.
So they're okay with
Okay.
the staff recommendation of
Okay, perfect.
R20.
Good with this. Okay, moving on to number 21. And they have that one crossed off as well.
That's the one where we spoke about it being a cost
The stucco
increase,
walls.
right? Where it would create a much more. That would.
Yeah, it's,
That-
it's,
yeah.
it's hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And if you walk out here and look at the library, you're almost eye level with that roofs and you don't, you know.
Yeah. 21.
Oh, wait,
So the library
Oh.
doesn't do what this condition says. So the library roof is actually more consistent with the Pueblo Viejo Villas project.
uh-huh,
So it's just kind of like the standard concrete kind of tile. But if you were to depart from this condition, I would at least recommend that you do like at least the blended tile. And then where you could do it like at the edges, you have like the mortar packing. But you know, I don't think as staff were really set on the clay tile. We understand that it can be easy, it's fragile and it's easy to break. But at least trying to achieve that.
Are you guys good with that? or-
No, we can do a blended tile, but any sort of boosting is just, it doesn't make sense. Nobody's gonna be looking up 30 feet and see that.
Yeah, but we have it at
White Home.
Walgreens and.
We have it in
at
other-
City Home. So,
I just
like
gotta-
Gabe mentioned, it's consistent with the Pueblo Viejo. We're
Well-
right smack in the middle of Pueblo Viejo.
Yeah, but
Help me out, architect.
Well, you just do the first floors or the first row of tiles. You have to remember too, that what you're looking at too, is we've got a bunch of outriggers that run across here.
sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Yes, just so that those watching are
Sorry.
able to hear, sorry.
So if you look at these elevations, where those tiles that we're talking about, those are hanging over a set of outriggers, like 3x8
Mhm.
outriggers that run across, or the wood members that come out.
Corbels,
Right,
aren't
so, packing, when you look up and you see that, you're never gonna see any of that packing of those first set of tiles that run along there. So it's kind of,
What's the width of, what's the overhang?
the
You have
overhang,
corbels,
well,
And then you have TNG.
exactly correct, yeah. So you won't even see the packing of that tile, especially at 30-something feet up in the air. Typically on a single-story, house that's done in the Spanish Revival, you would see that packing all the way along because that's the look of that. At 31 feet up in the air with your outriggers over there, I mean, I think it's just it's also a maintenance issue. That stuff starts to crack and fall. It's gonna fall 31 feet down on your sidewalk. So it could be a maintenance issue, and then just getting that tile up there. Now you have to remember too, this is a mansard roof, right? So it is sloping back, but it's only sloping back to about 4 feet. So you're only seeing about 4 feet of tile from 31 feet, and then you're trying to pack in, the first set of tiles. It'd be very difficult for a roofer to get up there, and very dangerous for him to hang over there and pack all that ridge line in. So, and then not being able to see it with, all the outriggers and like you said, the TNG and all that up there, it'll be very difficult.
Okay,
So could we just put it to utilize instead of clay tile for the roofing? to use
Yeah,
this
you will get the
mix?
same look with the blended look of
Blended.
tiles, depending on what colors we end up coming up with. I mean, these are, conceptual here, but we'll stick to whatever we agree upon. And then we'll provide, a sample of the tiling, and we'll give it the same sort of look, kind of the wavy line, and we'll mix and match the colors as they go through. And it'll give you, roughly the same look. You'd have to stand probably about 2 blocks away to be able to see that roof anyways.
commissioners.
I'm okay with that.
What's your recommendation?
Blended look, what is it?
I'm okay with that for the reason he's mentioned. It is gonna be harder to see. If it was something that was at the second floor or roof that you see above the first floor, then I would be very adamant about like keeping the condition.
And you're gonna work with them in terms of the blend of color scheme.
Okay. Okay, looks like 22 is settled. Moving on to 23.
Actually,
Oh,
that was
wait, you-
21.
You
No,
didn't do
sorry,
22.
21.
Mhm.
Oh, 21 is,
Utilize
That,
the
that was
Yes.
21.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, that was
That was
21.
21.
Okay,
we
sorry.
just talked about.
Utilize the two-piece. Great
Thank
job,
you.
okay.
Blended.
With booster time.
Okay, moving on to number 22.
Their condition keeps it consistent with Pueblo Viejo's across the street.
So theirs is stucco walls. Okay.
So what's the agreement on, are we gonna do the standard 1640 finish, or is it gonna be a hand felt?
This
Santa Barbara
60/40, we can't, we don't have the money to do the other fancy finish.
Would you say you have on Pueblo Viejo? You have the,
That's a 60/40.
it's a
60,
60/40?
40.
Yeah, the, doing the hand trowel, steel hand trowel, that you're asking the laborer to get up there and apply with his trowel.
They do it every day. I'm a contractor, so.
You could see how much of elevation you have around, two buildings with four sides and that amount of stucco going up 3 stories. It's gonna take him, we're probably gonna be in the middle of summer when we're building this thing. So you can imagine the amount of time and effort and labor it's gonna take, a whole crew to go around and steel trowel that. It's, again, a beautiful look.
Mhm.
I mean, the finishes that Gabriel is chosen for the Spanish Revival, they're all correct in the era and the architectural style. It's just that we're trying to apply this to an affordable product. And, sometimes we just don't have the funds to be able to do so.
Thank you. So are we okay with number 22, the way they have?
Yeah, I
it?
think if it matches.
It's the way it's,
Pueblo Viejo, it's consistent. Yeah, so.
Especially
I'm
as
good
you
with
Okay.
drive down.
okay, we're moving on to number 23. There are no changes on there. Moving on to 24.
Excuse me real quick,
Oh, yeah.
on the parapet wall, you said you guys are applying the solar panels, so you're not gonna have any visible solar panels from the ground.
No, we'll set the pitch and the height of that due to, OSHA and the insurance for Chelsea, we have to provide at least a 42-inch high parapet. So that way, anybody servicing the equipment up there or clearing the drains or anything like that will be protected from, for fall protection. So we'll probably raise that height just a little bit more, just to be, so that way with the cricketing in the roof and things like that, that will cover everything. So you're probably looking at something about 4 feet above that. And we're not a zero net energy like we are for for Pueblo. So the panels won't be as many. So you won't see anything or any equipment from the street.
Thank you. Okay, we are on number 24. So there are no changes. Second. Oh yeah, number 24, there's no changes. Moving on to number 25, no changes. Now we're going on to the public realm and streetscape. Number 26. There are some changes on there. So they have the sidewalks along Cesar Chavez. Street shall be expanded to provide access and seating into the ground floor commercial spaces with an urban character and reduced perimeter planter areas, including adjacent to the building edge. And then it just adds residential units shall provide a new access to the existing sidewalk. Are we okay with how that reads?
Staff is okay with that. We think that it's a better condition.
Commissioners?
The sidewalk that's being applied or being constructed now on 6th Street, does that correlate with the project that you're proposing?
Well, I think that's what Gabriel was proposing. It was to take that look and put it on Cesar Chavez. And right now we're preserving that for 6th Street and we're just matching 6th Street on what we did in front of Pueblo Viejo.
You didn't
So
do that on the other Pueblo Viejo, did you?
We did not do the expansion, no. So we would have the 5-foot sidewalk, the existing 5-foot sidewalk in front of the residential, but then like Andrew Simmons said, we would probably remove the other sidewalk because that'll all be decorative in front of the commercial. And it wraps around the sides. But the important part here is that we just want to highlight that we are providing an access from the residential apartments to the sidewalk.
to the sidewalk and street.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to 26, are we okay with 26, how it reads? Okay. Now 27. So they have that crossed off. And it's planters with tree gates shall be installed every 17 to 25 feet and planted with shade trees adjacent to Cesar Chavez, to create a separation between the street and the pedestrian traffic. And this is what we're seeing here. Dave?
So this is what the applicant proposes to
What
do,
we have.
to maintain this. And what staff proposes is
Is
to
what we
have
have,
the tree
okay.
grates adjacent to the curb.
I mean, you would have shade because the building's so tall, you're gonna have shade most of the morning up until noon, right?
Yes, and the thing I would say, Commissioner, about that is that in the hottest part of the day, though, that the shade tree will provide shade for pedestrians walking along the street. So you can see on this picture that it's shaded, just that was taken in
The morning.
like the morning. So that will happen from the building, but in the afternoon. And I just encourage it just because Sunline, you know, with the transit station, we had them switch to that where they would have trees. Because those people that are waiting for the bus, right?
Need
Like
shade.
the hottest part of the day. they're
Is
gonna
this-
get that shade.
Excuse me, is this a tree in between each state palm or? Is
There
that what
would-
the proposed
there would be
idea
a-
is?
Yeah, so instead of this pattern here of the date palm, for every tree, it would be staggered. So you would have date palm, shade tree, date palm, shade tree.
Okay.
Well, couldn't you just add trees in there and keep it like that and keep it cost efficient? I'd rather just do that.
That's what we're proposing.
Okay.
To include shade trees then also,
In between the date palms. right?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so, well, that's already in the plan. about
Right.
How the trees are staggered.
But
What-
now,
What the question is do you prefer to keep this sidewalk similar to the other project? Or to use this, which is per the downtown plan?
I think we should keep the same layout that we have there. Just to put the palm tree, a shade tree, a palm tree, a shade tree, and just keep the sidewalk right up against Cesar Chavez.
Also because all of that Cesar Chavez, if you look down the whole corridor, because I walked that on weekends to come to the 6th Street Coffee, it's all straight. There is no, maybe when you get closer to like the, past the, industrial one, there's like on the other side, but it's not properly maintained, but it's very consistent, the same all the way down. It's not, it hasn't changed, so it's all very consistent already. So there's no, I know that we want to get more shade trees, but this would at least add the shade trees into the thing. I'm talking more about like adding those other planters, so it would change the like layout on the street.
wouldn't that also take away from, because I know what we have in front of Veterans Park, but that section, that sidewalk is a little bit
Narrow.
wider. Yeah, it might be, I don't know how different it would be, or if it'd be just like this, what we were seeing right now in front.
I think it's functional because you have those, the Pueblo Viejo one, that's,
Yeah.
it's
You know-
basically the same layout, yeah?
You know, was, so the difference is, and Andrew was referencing this a little bit earlier, is it shifts in the plan. So I'm gonna go to I have the site plan around here. So.
See what he
Okay.
says.
It's working. Yeah. So see how this sidewalk is wider here along the commercial frontage? So you're gonna have a really wide sidewalk here. And then they're proposing to bring it down to the 6-foot sidewalk or the existing sidewalk here. But in this case, I think they're trying to keep the existing 6-foot sidewalk but then add the additional sidewalk over here. So it'll look different, right? You're gonna have this new paving or concrete adjacent to the existing sidewalk.
So you'll have two sidewalks, so what you're saying?
That's what you would.
I think that other sidewalk they're proposing, so the retail space can have like a, what we've gotten used to these, what do they call the parklets? So it'll be kind of like an outside patio kind of space that the space could use.
How about
Chairs, yeah.
Yeah.
pavers?
What's that?
I mean, would it make sense to put pavers on the second hardscape instead of regular sidewalk?
The pattern, what we recommend is just like what you see on Sixth Street, which is, it's like large square scoring, right? It's not
Okay.
pavers. It looks nice, but it's not pavers though.
Okay, yeah, no,
Like if you ever walk around Sixth Street, you'll see
Yeah.
that pattern.
yeah, that makes sense.
That's fine.
All right, Commission. So what did we agree on? I went to get water. Sorry.
So because what they're proposing, so removing number, I would be okay with removing their number 27 as they
So-
presented it.
As a percentage, removing 27, okay. Mr. Gonzalez, what do you think?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, you're fine with it? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna, so moving on from 27, going on to number 28, there's no changes on there. 29, no changes. 30, no changes. 31, no changes. Now we're moving on to general and engineering. So on number 32, we don't have any changes. 33, no changes. Going on to number 34, no changes. 35. Can I say 35 through 46, there are no changes? 30, yes, 30, 35 through 48, there are no changes. Okay, so we're gonna move on to precise, oh yeah, under precise grading, number 49. Provide and record a reciprocal use and maintenance agreement to assure common ingress and egress and joint maintenance of all common areas, parking areas, and drives. And I think we were okay with removing this one because they're gonna do maintenance. And then if not, we have code enforcement. Okay, so we're removing 49. Moving on to number 50. No changes there. Moving on to street improvements, number 51. My numbers are off, but there were no changes. Okay. Oh, no, 53.
That's okay. I was just trying to clarify.
Okay, so you're okay with the way 53, because you had on D, you had changed something, but you're okay with that?
No, either way works. It was just,
I like their 53 because it's very specific
Along the side,
along the west side of
and then
Tripoli
Tripoli
Way,
Way. Okay.
because it's just more specific.
Okay, so 53 is clear. Moving on to sewer and water improvements, number 54 and 55. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Are we okay with those? 54 and, oh, I see. Yes,
It's
yeah, 54 and 55 look the same for both.
actually, you have to go
Changes?
back to one.
You have to go.
53-2 has that one of
G, yeah.
of G over the
Okay.
parking, so we have to make sure, we had talked that was. It already has if it's fine with them, it has the city engineer may eliminate the need for dynamic parking if demonstrated by applicant to be infeasible. So already has that caveat written in.
Okay,
So
oh, yes, perfect. Okay, sorry. Did not see that one. Okay. Did you get that, Gabe? Just making sure for.
Yes, to add.
Okay,
G.
yes. Okay, moving on to sewer and water improvements, 54 and 55 look the same, so we're good with that. And now moving on to prior to issuance of building permits, number 56 is good. Now moving on to number 57. It is crossed off from the applicant.
And
That's okay with that too.
We were okay with that one?
Engineer was okay with it.
Perfect, okay, he did. Say. Okay, so we're good with 57. 57 is crossed off. Moving on to number 58. There are no changes there, so 58 is good, 59 is good. And now moving on to prior to release of occupancy permits and acceptance of public improvements, 60, there are no changes, right? Yes, no changes. Moving on to landscaping, 61, 62, and 63 are good. And 64, 65, there are no changes.
number
65.
65 had a change,
Yeah,
sorry.
so it's number 67 on theirs, doesn't have the.
It was a
I'm using the numbers from the
Right, well,
applicant.
this was an item that was added to the new conditions.
Okay, right, so 60, okay, yeah, so for 65 on the staff recommendation.
Mhm.
I think Andrew and Henry both said code enforcement, this would be something to deal with code enforcement. It was similar to the other one where there's no need to do there's no need to enter into a landscape agreement with the city. What do you think, commissioners?
The way Henry, if I'm quoting you, Henry, make sure I'm right, is that this, ensuring we have this ensures that it adds in a layer agreement between the two respective parties, correct, Henry?
Yes, that's correct.
So in this scenario, to be clear, it would not be them getting services from us. It just say that we're gonna agree, this is our agreement that you're gonna ensure you're gonna maintain it as we
But
go.
there's maintenance, yeah. Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's number 65 for under staff's conditions, their packet. Okay. We are good with number 67. We're going off of the applicant's packet.
On theirs, or, I like the one the city proposes,
Okay,
but
67.
I don't know what everyone else has.
Okay, 67 and 65, got it. Okay, I think, yeah, so the only thing that's added on here is what Henry said and entering into an agreement. So we're good with 65? And that's 67 on their packet. It's the same one. It's just adding that the applicant shall enter into a landscape agreement with the city. Okay, so we're good with 65, the way that's worded on the staff. Does that make sense, Gabe?
Yeah, so we're just.
Okay.
including the maintenance agreement.
Yes. Okay, moving on to number 68. And on staffs is 66. There's no changes there. Moving on to CVWD, Coachella Valley Water District. Number 69, there's no changes there. Moving on to the fire department, number 70, there's no changes. 71, no changes. 72, 73, and 74, there are no changes. And that's all the way through. So 70 through 79, there are no changes. We're good with how those look. Moving on to environmental compliance. And 80 through 85, we are good with that. There are no changes. And then the very last one, code enforcement. There is something crossed off from staff. And it just says applicant shall maintain fencing and windscreen adequately secured and braced to the satisfaction of code enforcement manager. This is to deter vandalism and dumping that is regularly occurring on the property prior to construction.
It's already, staff report's written, it's fine.
Okay.
And they've already put in the fencing down.
Yeah, so we just updated this.
Okay.
Just to say whatever you have there, just keep it. until
Yeah.
you-
Gotcha.
Okay. That's fine.
All right. Okay. Whew. All right, would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to, we can go to that screen, right?
Yeah, can you go back to the, I think we forgot the motion.
Well, so the motion is to adopt resolution number PC 2022-24, recommending that the city council approve CUP 351 and architectural review number 2204 with the findings and conditions as recommended by both the applicant and those of staff as presented this evening and agreed upon by the planning commission.
Okay, perfect. Can we get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Wonderful.
Figure it out.
Can we get roll call?
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Aye.
Commissioner Figueroa,
Aye.
Commissioner Leal, absent. Alternate Commissioner Gutierrez.
I have a question. Does this mean that you're accepting the name of the project as Tripoli?
Oh, that's likely to change, right? Yeah, they'll be looking for a name.
May I suggest something?
Good question.
My vote is yes, okay? But in terms of the name for the project, since it's within the Pueblo Viejo, este, project limits, even though it seems like it's turned out to be Pueblo Nuevo. Pueblo Nuevo, because some of the original facilities have been torn down. I would suggest this project be called Covalda. You see where the building B is at? The first date processing plant was constructed there and operated there by the Anderson family. Their descendants still live out there by City High School, where they brought in the original date tree shoots from Saudi Arabia in 1910, 1911. And just as a historical data, you've heard of the National Day Festival? Guess where it was originally celebrated? Coachella. Okay. For historical reasons and because it's relative to the Pueblo Viejo project, I would suggest it called Covalda project.
How about Pueblo Viejo Covalda? I think,
Commissioner, that information is in the phase 1 environmental assessment they did on this project, so it does have that information in there.
yeah, I knew the Andersons too. I was a loyal customer of theirs. They had a health food store and then they had a packing process plant there on that same site. So yeah, they were there forever. They were part of the original members of our community, but I know all the Anderson family, just real nice people.
Okay. Were we doing roll call?
Yes, I didn't finish.
Oh.
So yes
Gotcha.
for
Right.
alternate Commissioner Gutierrez, Vice Chair Navarrete is absent, and Chair Virgen.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time, of course. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to our informational item. Do we have anything from staff?
And Covalda, what Covalda means is Coachella Valley. It's abbreviated.
Thank you. Bye, thank you.
I have, the only informational item I have is the city has a LAFCO request tomorrow
Oh,
regarding
mhm.
the county area between Avenue 52
yes.
and 50 between Jackson and Calhoun. So we'll see how that goes. We filed a reconsideration. That used to be in the sphere of influence for the city back in 2006. And then it was removed around that time. And so we've been doing some outreach. We have about 8 property owners that support coming into the city. So we'll see what the decision is tomorrow. We'll report back.
Good job, Gabriel.
And
Thank you.
across from the Leisure Farms, the school, the abandoned schools, it's that property
Yeah.
across the street.
Not that property across the street, but like on the west side.
Oh, I said,
Yeah, west side.
just trying to be geographically.
Mhm.
I have one question about information for you. Are the Mariposa Point Home open for like where are they with their model homes? Because that entrance is not really right.
Yeah, so they still have some more work to do. So the median still needs to be landscaped and it's gonna have hardscape improvements. So it's really nice. They thought the landscape, everything, the perimeter, the retention basins. As far as the models, they're pretty much done. They haven't opened them because there are some issues they're trying to work out with IUD. So we actually have to do extra work to bring lines all the way down to, my understanding was gonna be from like Avenue 51, pretty far. So, so that work has a little bit delayed them. So they're actually gonna have to install generators to get the models open.
Wow.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, because I saw signs open by appointment only.
yeah. So they're trying to get the generators, I think, this week, so they can open up the models pretty, I don't know, I guess they may open this week.
Okay.
All right, good job, everybody.
All right, at this time at 8:37 PM, we will adjourn the meeting.